Why'd I sign up for this again?
Hi. To hear my voice injected into your eardrums. Don't worry. Nobody actually cares whether you get these right or wrong. What I've discovered from these comments is that they treat this as just another CGB is complaining about Commander video. That's what the comments are. They're like, oh, is this just another excuse for CGB to complain about the Commander ban list? Look, I'm not complaining. I really am fine with it. I just don't understand it, and that's okay. I don't have to understand everything for it to exist. This is all just part of the process.
According to the comments, you don't understand anything, but that's another story.
You're not getting invited back with that attitude. Okay, then. Well, on that awesome note, yeah, we have some more pieces of the Commander ban list for you to check out today.
Oh, God. Is this part 2 that I did so well last time? Great. Can't wait.
Yeah, it's kind of part 2. It's also, I'm just going to show you one card. You're just going to analyze each card one at a time instead of having the two next to each other. I like the two next to each other format, kind of, but I also like the vacuum, kind of. So we're going to analyze some cards. Yeah.
Get variety on your channel.
So the question is simple. Is this banned in the most popular format in Magic, the 4-player free-for-all casual format of Commander? Is this card banned? Are you ready?
As ready as I will be based off how these other ones have gone. All right, let's see it. Okay, that's a lot of mana. We don't like paying for things. Iona, Shield of Emeria. Don't know if I pronounce any of that right.
Iona, I think, is what they go with, yeah.
Okay. 6 and 3 white, so it's 9 for a 7/7 legendary creature angel. So this could be your commander because it is legendary. Flying, I'd hope so. It's an angel. As Iona enters the battlefield, choose a color. Your opponents can't cast spells of the chosen color.
Yeah, simple.
It is simple. Magic cards typically are much more simple than what I show you. Where's my head going with this? This just seems, I have to go back to that whole Commander ban list philosophy you gave me of those like pillars of like why they ban cards, even though they contradict their own line of thinking half the time.
Watch the previous video for examples of that. By the way, it's kind of wild. A lot of our comments defend the Commander ban list, like really defend the bans, which surprised me because in a previous videos I've made, people liked roasting the Commander ban list, but now they're defenders of the Commander ban list. It's comments is weird. Let's see what they do with this one. Maybe it was the cards I chose. I don't know.
They're like Emeria. They're shielding the hate of the Commander ban list now.
Yeah, opponents can't cast spells of the banned color. Just none of them.
I'm a bit conflicted on this one. I remember the philosophy was that they want people to be able to cast their big giant thing, right? But then they also don't like the fact that people don't get to play. And so if your opponent is playing a singular color deck, like let's just say your opponent's playing an all white deck because they have a white, like they have their own like Iona, like that's their commander, let's say. If you play this and then you call white, and then it's also your opponent, so it's everyone, right? So I guess you'd have to think of it in against 3 players. So it's like you pick whatever the most common color is, and then if someone's playing like a mono color of that deck, they just can't play the game. And then you have 2 other people that like, maybe it's like part of a color, like maybe they have like a 2 or 3 color commander, so it like kind of hits them, but not really. And it turns off, like, let's say it's just 1 color and they're playing a 2 or 3 color. Then it hits either like 50% of their deck or 33% of their deck. And I think 1 card preventing 3 people from kind of or entirely playing the game isn't very fun. And I could see why people would hate this, especially if you have ways to cheat this out sooner. Even though it does cost 9, I imagine there's ways to get this out a lot quicker than that. If you take it at face value, though, paying 9 for this to lose to any removal sounds awful. So that's like kind of like, that's like where I'm saying this card is bad. Because like by Yu-Gi-Oh standards, if you would funnel all these resources into this and just kill this with 1 card, you're feeling pretty good about that. So, like, as a Yu-Gi-Oh player, I feel like this card sucks because I feel like we would just easily be able to deal with this most of the time. Let me ask a technical question here.
Sure.
When you play Iona, excuse me, when you play Iona and you are activating the ability, like when you're choosing a color, is that on the stack and your opponent can respond to it? Like, so let's say you play Iona and you call red. Is that on the stack and they could play a red spell in response to Iona activating before it like resolves to prevent you from playing red cards? Or is that not how this works?
That's an excellent question. If it said when Iona enters the battlefield, choose a color, it would work in the way that you could respond to that ability, that trigger. But it's as. So there is no window there once Iona is on the battlefield. Now, you can respond to Iona on the stack, but you don't know what the color choice is, and Iona is not on the battlefield. So if you say had a black spell that could remove it, and they call black, then you can't then play that spell and remove Iona.
Gotcha. So semantics matter. That is very much the case in Yu-Gi-Oh!
Iona, things are on the side of the Iona's caster in this case.
Got it.
In this case.
You could also, because since it's as she enters the battlefield, that means it's not like if you dispose of her, she's gone forever, right? I imagine like and then as there are less opponents, Iona gets better and better, worse for the opponents. Because then you could be a lot more selective with what you shut down. I think I want to go against my Yu-Gi-Oh brain here. My Yu-Gi-Oh brain says this card is bad because there's just way too many ways that we'd be able to deal with something like this, even though it's not fun. But Yu-Gi-Oh, we have a philosophy, especially like as the game has aged, is that like cards that prevent the opponent from doing things, even if there are counters to them, doesn't mean those cards should exist in the game. So I think I'm going to go against my judgment. I'm going to say that this card is banned, because it just creates a very unfun dynamic for people to play against.
This card is bad. And it's also banned.
Okay. All right. So we're right.
Yeah. Iona was in the format, though, legal for a very long time. Printed in 2009 and not banned for 10 years. Banned in 2019.
And what was the reason, CGB?
Let's read it.
Narrator voice.
Iona's ability to lock entire colors out of the game makes it brutally efficient at removing agency from other players at the table, especially when opponents are playing one or two color decks. This often has the effect of totally negating one or more players' involvement in a game and creates unnecessary social friction. Social friction. That's
social friction. Yeah, social friction. That's
called
life.
Game.
That's called living. Living is social friction. Deal with it. Get good. That's what I would say. Okay, so I'm glad that it's bad and banned, because that means I was like double right on this one. Good.
Oh
okay.
yeah. You came out swinging. We need to set the stage for what they're willing to ban. They're willing to ban a 9-mana 1-color creature.
Yeah.
Because it might shut someone out of the game completely.
And remind me, you also said that 3-color commanders are the most popular, right?
Yes. So 3-color commanders are the most popular. 1-color commanders are the least popular. 1-color commanders, all of them together, there aren't as many of those decks like registered on EDH Rec as there are 5-color decks.
Wow. I mean, it makes sense though, because it's less cards you have to play with.
Yeah, people don't play 1-color decks very often. It's pretty rare. So it is kind of wild that this was banned in 2019, an era where, the format was actually, it was growing. It was already the most popular format. It had been through kind of the stages of growth before, with a lot of the other bans that happened have kind of like shaped what's good in the format. I never saw this card anywhere. This card, I think, is the poster card of somebody on the rules committee had this in their play group and just said so one day, that's it, I'm done. I
also just realized how large she is, because you see that little silhouette of a human on that rock on the side, and she's like 400 times bigger than that human. So
yeah, dude, cool. She's awesome. I mean, you talk about a place where players can play their big, awesome cards.
Yeah.
This is a big, awesome, oh shit kind of card. And remember, I showed you last week a 2-mana card that says your opponents can't play their commanders, and that is not banned.
I don't know what to tell you, buddy. I don't know what to tell you.
All right. I guess we'll do more things. That's what we'll do. We'll do more things. It'll be fine. Here. What about this card?
All right. Possibility Storm. 3 and 2 red for an enchant. This is like Yu-Gi-Oh! Wall of text. This is perfect for me. Great.
That's why I picked it.
All right.
Totally why.
Just you wait. Just you wait, buddy. I've got plenty of stuff I've been holding back for you when it comes to this. All right. Whenever a player casts a spell from his or her hand, that player exiles it. Okay. Then exiles cards from the top of his or her library until he or she exiles a card that shares a card type with it. So if I cast a sorcery, I exile it, and then I exile stuff off the top until I hit another sorcery. That player may cast the card without paying its mana cost. Then he or she puts all cards exiled with Possibility Storm on the bottom of his or her library in a random order. Is this good? I mean, that doesn't mean that's what gets it banned, obviously. It's just if someone got, lost by it and has a good bad beat story. That would be the real reason. I guess it's when a player casts a spell from his or her hand, exiles it. Well, so first of all, this is reciprocal. Yes. We don't like when our opponent gets to do stuff like this. That's not fun.
Are we? Why not?
Because that could be bad for you. How is that a good thing?
Could also be good for you.
It could be.
It just means any time they cast anything, you have no idea what's going to happen. What could go wrong?
Yeah, what could possibly go wrong? That's where my mind is with this. Okay, so they get to do the thing. If I'm reading this right, you can do this. Oh, this is mandatory. This happens on everything. And it's not like a once per turn. This happens anytime anything is cast.
Yeah.
Okay.
From the hand.
From the hand. Yes, from the hand. And obviously lands don't count because those aren't spells.
That's right.
But creatures are spells, so creatures would count for this. And you can play it without paying its mana cost. And then you put everything else back on the bottom. It costs 5, so you have to play this. If you're playing this on turn 5, or if you're getting it out earlier, if you like ramp or whatever, this does literally nothing the turn you play it. Then you let your opponents, in that instance, get to do all of that stuff for free before it even comes back around to you to take advantage of it. Which means in that case, you would never do that. So how you would actually use this then is you would have some other things, either that are free or are cheap, or you would have a lot of mana before you do this, and you would go Possibility Storm. Let's say you have 10 mana, or like other ways to have a surplus of mana. You're down to 5, and then you can start doing your thing. But it's random, unless you have ways to like stack your deck to do some like dumb combo stuff, which like I wouldn't see out of the world of possibility. But this just seems like so much work, and then like if you're not doing specific combo stuff, like I feel like there's so many downsides to this card, which would tell me that I don't like it, but then that means it's probably banned because someone probably got sacked by this. So yeah, I'll say it's banned.
Do you remember Drannith Magistrate? The white creature? Your opponents can't cast spells from anywhere other than their hands?
Yes, that was the one that you were referring to before, right?
Yeah. So if that's out, they just can't cast anything at all?
So what? I mean, is that the combo, right?
There are several cards that work that way. There's there's Teferi. Like, there's a number of ways to Possibility Storm lock people out of the game. All your opponents just lock them out forever from ever casting anything. And yet this card is legal and has never been banned and is totally fine.
I mean, I didn't think it was good. I was going with the logic that like someone on the rules committee just lost to this, and some like that maybe they had a full grip on the game and got possibility stormed and lost out of nowhere, and they banned it for that reason. So that was my logic behind this. I did not think that this card is an issue. Does this actually see play? Is this like good?
Not very often. The decks that use it are going to be like chaotic, like absolute nonsense decks, chaos decks, basically designed to make sure that the game doesn't progress in the way a game, in my opinion, should, and the way that most players would want it.
As a control player, I wonder why that is. You don't want the chaos deck going off. Interesting. Okay.
And for the record, all of you at home sending me deck lists, you guys should know this about me. I hate chaos decks. When I play a commander deck, I want to play my commander deck, not whatever weird version of Magic you've come up with that you want to make all the spells not do what they're supposed to do. Haha, isn't that funny that your deck doesn't do anything that it was supposed to do? Yeah, I hate chaos decks. I absolutely despise them.
I'm assuming by
decks and chaos decks, I attack them first. I'm like, get rid of them.
I'm assuming by chaos deck, because chaos deck in Yu-Gi-Oh means something completely different. By that, you mean just like decks that just do a lot of random things and you can't predict the outcome.
Yeah,
yes. That's what I was gathering from the implication. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. My friend Ryan has a Nira deck. Nira is kind of like a personal possibility storm. You just, the first spell you cast, you exile it and then cast the next thing you flip over. It's disgusting, and I hate it. I hate it so much. But yeah, Possibility Storm runs in a very similar way. You mentioned having to go around the table. Typically, a deck that's going to run these kind of effects is going to play the Storm, then cast some cheap 0 mana instant or 1 mana instant, and see if they flip over a huge spell of some kind. So
I can see why you'd hate that.
Yeah, I hate this card. This card, though, is fine. It only sees play in very niche strategies. It's not in the average game. Every time it is in a game, I hate it so much.
All right,
but it's
chaos deck against CGB. I wrote that in my invisible notebook. Got it.
Yeah, totally fine. Totally fine. Let's give you another one. Let's give you this one.
All right, it's blue. It's probably broken. Ilayo Solatami Ascendant. This is also the freakiest looking. I just realized it's like a 2. Okay, I'll get to that in a moment. Ilayo Solatami Ascendant. It is a 1 in a blue, flying. Whenever the 4th spell of a turn is played, flip Ilayo. It's a 1/1. Okay, now I see why it's called flip. Ilayo's essence, and yes, I'm turning my head upside down to read this.
Libby,
counter the first spell.
I want the camera. I want the full face camera on this.
Counter the first spell played by each opponent each turn. Oh, and it's an enchantment, so it's not a creature anymore. This is like, I don't know how I feel about this just from like a card templating perspective, that it's like this weird thing. Because doesn't Magic, you have like the cards that flip upside down, right? That you have like stuff printed on the back, right?
Yeah.
I feel like that would be better, but maybe they didn't know how to print cards like that back then.
Oh yeah, it's better, but this was first.
Sure. Okay. So they're like, how can we do this? And we don't have the printing capability.
How can we do this and save the most money? Is probably more accurate.
That also could be it too. That also could be it. As wacky as Yu-Gi-Oh is, I don't think we've experimented with stuff like this when it comes to the. I will save that for a different video now that I think about it. Anyway, let's talk about Ilayo. 4th spell of a turn, and then it counters the first spell played by each opponent each turn. 4th spell of a turn. So your opponent can also flip this, potentially. Okay, let me ask this. Does Ilayo check... how do I phrase this? If you... Let's say you activate 3 spells in a turn. And then you activate a 4th spell, and then on the stack, I somehow flash Ilayo in that it hits the board before the 4th spell is cast. Does Ilayo know that and then flips immediately, or is that not a thing you can do?
So I think that the spirit of your question is that you are right, and it works the way the Ilayo player would want. So what we're talking about is that you would want to cast spell number 1, cast spell number 2, cast Ilayo, then cast spell number 4. Arayo has to.
Oh, because Arayo
see,
is. Okay.
Yeah, it's a spell. So from a rule standpoint, Arayo has to see the 4th spell get cast. It does keep track of the number before that spell resolves in the turn, but Arayo has to be fully on the battlefield to witness the 4th spell being cast for the trigger to happen.
Got it. Okay.
And there is fun stuff where it counts each player's spell. So if Arayo is the 3rd spell and it's on the stack and the opponent casts anything in response, then 4 spells were already cast and Arayo won't see it.
That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
For people wondering, there's a card called Summon Limit that checks for summons in a similar way, which is why I was asking if that's the case. So it sounds like it works similarly to that in Yu-Gi-Oh! So I just wanted to clarify because that kind of matters. You would have to find a way to flash it in though, but that's like a whole nother thing.
It's blue.
It's blue. I mean, it doesn't seem that hard.
Showed you.
Yeah.
We showed you.
You literally showed me a card called Flash. Yeah.
And it's banned. So you know.
Well, so much for that theory. This is interesting. This, like, in a way, could be a Yu-Gi-Oh card. I think it's still a bit too slow for what it's worth. Like, it itself would have to have Flash, and, like, even then...
It feels Yu-Gi-Oh! It has attack position and defense position.
It kind of does, in a funny way. Yeah. But, like, countering the first spell played by each opponent... When you're playing Yu-Gi-Oh!, especially modern Yu-Gi-Oh!, like, you have to, like, bait out a lot of the things first, so it's kind of like they're effectively countering the first thing you play to make sure the actual thing you want to go through works. That's like card game 101, right? Neat card. It only costs 1 and a blue, so it's cheap. It's any spell. I have to remember creatures or spells. That's something that's just weird for Yu-Gi-Oh! Players. You could just play a bunch of cheap stuff that costs 0 or 1 and then get this out immediately. And, like, maybe if you do that early in the game, like if it's turn 1 or turn 2 and your opponent's only allowed to, like, if they only have 2 mana, if they can only play one thing, it gets immediately countered. And that's kind of like the sentiment with the whole table because they don't have things to get countered first. That seems very feels bad. And that seems like something...
I was just going to say they could work together. Like one of them, if they have an instance, could play a spell that gets countered and the other could play a removal.
Okay.
Oh, no, are they willing each? Actually, it doesn't work that way. It's by each. Oh,
I was about to say, it said each. That was going to be a clarifying question. Also, you know, social friction. We can't have that, right?
Dude, that could be a lot of social friction. In fact, I want that every card that comes out that could cause social friction. Let's gauge whether or not it could cause social friction to decide if it got banned.
What was that card you showed me at the beginning of the last video?
What did it do?
The creature.
Yeah.
I think it was it a black creature? I think. What was it? It was like, it did something where it was, each player has to like sacrifice something. Braids. Thank you.
Yeah,
this
braids.
This gives me like braids vibes, if that makes sense.
Sure.
In like a different way. And if they banned braids, I could see them banning this. I feel like this is a card that as the game progresses, it gets a lot worse because it's lower impact when your opponent has more stuff to throw at it to get countered. But I feel like early on, this card, similar to Braids, is really annoying. And also because of the anti-blue sentiment that everyone seems to have. That's a reason already to see this being banned. I'll say this is banned.
Dude, it's going to be a rough, like, sequence of videos if you catch on to the fact that if it's blue, it's probably banned. I'm going to have to
I learned from you!
I'm going to have to dig deep, man.
Is it banned?
Yeah, it's banned.
Oh, easy.
Actually, the catch with Braids was really good because this was, like Braids, banned as Commander back when they had a banned as Commander list. And it got kind of grandfathered in from banned as Commander to just plain banned when they decided to get rid of the 2 lists and only
I didn't realize there was 2 separate lists. Interesting.
Yep.
Okay.
The banned as Commander list was it lasted for a little while. It was banned in 2014. There was recently a Command Zone podcast episode about should they bring it back, and it brought up a lot of the points points of like, well, then you have to, not only do you have to have the conversation about every card being banned, you also have to, for every legendary and every commander, say, well, but should we also ban as commander? And it just creates so much conversation, which can be good for content, but I was about to say, just makes things more complicated. Let's read about Arayo, Soratami Ascendant. When played as a commander, Arayo leads decks that cast and flip her early, leading to games where even targeted removal is often ineffective. Worse, the flipped Arayo does not always send a strong signal to newer players that the game is essentially over. The natural result is a play pattern that is nearly always one-sided and oppressive. What they're saying is somebody will sit down with a bunch of new players, flip a Ryo, and then the new players will just sit there every turn being like, and my spell got countered, oh darn, or I guess I don't cast anything, but won't stop playing. And the Ryo player just sits there looking at them.
They think it's like competitive where they're just going to scoop on the spot, right? It's like you're there to have a good time. And also if you wait a few turns, then it's like you can actually start throwing stuff into it. Granted, the game might be over by that point, but like it's not like you have 40 life, you know? I don't know.
Let's talk about scooping really quick, because this is an interesting thing in Commander and for digital card games, because I feel like I sit in the middle of this all the time. And I'm curious what it's like in Yu-Gi-Oh!
Sure.
So, on Arena, my opponents will basically scoop in a 1v1 game the second they fall behind, and there's kind of an awareness that we're in an end game state or that they're not going to get there. And the more powerful, the more push the format, the quicker those scoops seem to happen. Like if I go in a brawl, for example, if I have a turn one that's way above the curve, people will just scoop and go find another game. Like on turn one, if my turn one is that good or turn two is that good. And even certain cards that are like, because Brawl is the digital version of Commander, so everything's a one of. So if I have like the best one of that my deck could possibly have on turn two, people will just leave. And Commander players that come to my show are genuinely shocked by this. Like they point out all the time how like lame that is and how bad that is. But then you play Commander. And I play with some people who are newer to Commander because my play group started as a pretty new play group. I was the most experienced person by a lot.
Sure.
And it just doesn't cross their mind to concede. Like they have nothing. I have infinite cards and resources, and they're still like looking at their hand and like, you know, like being like, I guess I do this and I guess I do that. It's like, well, you're just going to die. So you die then, right? I guess so. And it's like not even in the mindset of people who play like board games, right? In board games, that would be pretty taboo to just get up and leave a board game.
Sure.
And in Commander, it's taboo. Like you're actually supposed to only concede at sorcery speed as proper manners, which means on your turn, you know, you can scoop if you want to and leave. But that's even then, people are like, you're not supposed to do that unless it's extreme situation, right? And on my own show, like with cameras rolling, like we have talks like off screen about, okay, this game is probably over. What's the right way to do this? Are they supposed to finish their turn? And like, we'll actually say this is probably a situation where the right thing would be to say some kind of out loud audio like, okay, I definitely can't win from this. And if you take another turn, it's going to take like another 10 minutes. So I'm going to concede here. Like you have to like this kind of presentation to let people know it's okay to concede. Is Yu-Gi-Oh! Have anything like this, like the digital paper divide, or how does it approach this?
My thoughts on that, I feel like it's a bit apples to oranges comparison though, right? Because I think you and I come from more competitive backgrounds naturally. Yeah. And so in the competitive environment, you're a lot more used to like proactively scooping when you see the writing on the wall. Sometimes you might make the opponent play it out because you think either they might mess up or maybe you want to see them like actually execute the line properly to actually see that you're dead, even though you can infer that you are, right? So there's like obviously some differences there, but with Commander, it's like there's like that social element to it, right? Like everyone's coming over to like just have a good time and play. And like I think it's kind of sort of contradicting like the whole spirit of it of just like hanging. Like if you're just there to hang out anyway, like you may as well just like, you know, just like, yeah, if you're dead, like is it really going to make that big of a difference? I don't know. I think it's subjective at that point, but Yu-Gi-Oh is very much similar to like what you're describing, where especially at the higher tiers competitive, or even on Master Duel, our online client, it's very much the fact that we, if things aren't going your way immediately, like you just scoop it up, right? You get the information, you go to the next game and just move on. Yeah, it's similar.
I picture it funny. Like, we're all here to hang out. We're all here to play a game. I flipped a Ryo on turn 1 so we can all just spend time together, Just
you also have to think the speed, like, because imagine having to like reset up another Commander game, right? It seems like that'd be so taxing because you have to shuffle this giant deck and like do all this stuff. Where it's like, if you're playing on the online client or if you're playing in like standard or anything like that, it's so easy to just get into the next game. I feel like the repeatability aspect helps. Yeah.
Just wait till we have you shuffle a double-sleeved 100-card deck a few times.
Oh, I can't wait.
It's
gonna
be fun. We're going to have so much fun. Oh, goodness. Alrighty, new card.
What the hell is this? Void Winnower? 9 mana for an 11/9 creature Eldrazi. I think I've seen something like these before. Your opponent can't cast spells with even converted mana costs. 0 is even. So they can't cast 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. I'm sure it goes higher, but that's probably like close to the cap.
Yeah, that's where we're done. Okay.
Yeah. Your opponents can't block with creatures with even converted mana costs. I like the flavor of this. It's like, it's fun. Despite if it's like good or bad or not, it's like just funny, just mechanically how this works. Cost 9. I mean, I know I've learned it's like Yu-Gi-Oh! You can cheat this stuff out, so like that doesn't necessarily matter. You can't play it as a commander though, so you do have to like get to it somehow. This is I could see this being annoying, but also like not the end all be all either. Because it's kind of like, it's Iona in a different way. Right?
Every deck has even costs, right? But every deck has odd costs too, right?
Right. For the most part, the thing I'm probably lacking context here is that if there was like a set of like staple cards that every commander deck plays that are like 0 or 2 or 4 even, that like, it's just like, it's a generic card, whether it's an artifact or something, that if you're playing this deck, these cards are in that deck, that this card shuts off, that could be annoying potentially.
Basically every deck is built with a curve in mind, so they all have like a very high amount of 2s. Like they're like only bad decks have no 2s.
Okay. I'm sure that's not going to rile up the comments at all.
I think the average cost of a commander is 4 to 5 as well.
Okay. That helps give some context. This kind of goes back to the example of this prevents opponents from doing stuff, but it also is really expensive. And like in terms of commander, it's like, you get to do the thing, but it's like a bad experience if like all of a sudden now you can't do things. It's weird because like with Iona, you could be more selective with it. Like Void Winnower hits everyone. Iona technically does too. But there could be a world where you Void Winnower and everyone has even cost stuff, and this card basically is a 9 mana 11/9 that does nothing.
You mean odd cost stuff?
Odd cost. Sorry, you know what I meant.
Yep. Gotcha.
There's also the blocking thing. Like, sure, that I don't think that's the reason you're playing this. That's like annoying, but who cares? Is this just Iona again, where it's bad, but it's banned anyway? Would you show me 2 cards like that? Would you show me 2 cards like that? Sure, let's go with that. Bad and banned.
So you've picked up on kind of the things that say your opponents can't do stuff have to be banned kind of vibe that we're going with.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that makes that this card is banned. Like, everyone's be like, yeah, this card's fine.
Yeah, swerve, this card's fine.
Yeah.
They didn't ban this one. I think it's... Yeah, Yeah, they haven't banned Void Winnower. In fact, the first time I played it, I was like, really? I can do this? That's kind of insane. So it's kind of wild because Iona is the same mana cost, and it also it will impact everyone, and people do not like Void Winnower, and it is not bad in the sense that nobody plays it. It's a staple in some very competitive decks. Kinnan specifically is what I'm thinking of for you EDH players who are like, where are you seeing Void Winnower? But that is a place. Yeah, Void Winnower, good card. I don't feel like it's ever talked about being banned. I think the difference is that every deck also has odd cards, so they assume somebody will get rid of it. I don't see how this passes the social friction test, and Iona does not.
I don't either.
Really
that's why
don't.
I thought it would be banned. Yeah. It just, like I said, I think they lost to Iona and didn't lose to this, and that's why Iona's on the list.
The Iona as commander thing is an argument, but is Iona even a good... That's the part I don't get. It's hard to cheat out the cards that are commanders because the cards that are commanders are living in a command zone. So you can't discard them from your hand and get them onto the battlefield with something that brings something out of the graveyard. You have to actually cast it to get it into a game piece. And when you're talking about 9-mana card, I think Void Winnower is better than Iona. I think it's a better overall card for the format, but here we are. Commander ban list, baby. This is what we do.
You gotta love it. All right, I'll happily be wrong on that because I think philosophically it should be banned, but it is what it is. All right,
agreed.
What we got next? All right, this card's banned. It's blue. Consecrated Sphinx. This is a 4/2 blue for a Sphinx. 4/6. I don't know how this is. I've never seen a... Well, I guess my interpretation of a Sphinx is from the Egyptian side of Yu-Gi-Oh, but I will move on. Flying... When an opponent draws a card, you may draw 2 cards. This is insane. That's so good. And it's on a creature. So there's a Yu-Gi-Oh card that's actually similar to this, but it's different in a few ways. It's called Appropriate. It's a very old card. It's very bad, but there's a few reasons it's bad. 1, it's a trap card. It's not a monster, so that's a big difference. 2, if I'm interpreting this correctly, it says whenever an opponent draws a card, you may draw 2. Does that count the draw phase?
Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah, so Appropriate only works on cards that draw cards after... it excludes the draw phase specifically. So, like I said, big differences on that card. This is also a creature. So it has stats, and it lets people do this stuff. It's like reasonably costed. Obviously, you can cheat it out. You can ramp into it to get to it sooner. Depending on the type of removal people play, this could be annoying to kill because if it's like damage-based removal, it's got 6 health. That's a lot. But if it's just straight up like kill something, then like that doesn't matter, obviously. I don't know like what's popular. It might just be deck dependent, color dependent. You so picked this on purpose, and I hate you for it because you know how card draw is. And funny enough, we just did a video about this. Conveniently. And it's you have 3 opponents. I didn't even think of it. Literally, if nothing else happens, if they literally go draw, pass, you drew 6 cards off of doing nothing if this thing lives. That's nuts. Yeah. That is crazy. So here's where I'm at with this. Yeah. This card's nuts. This card's crazy. Now we're into the mind games of, are you showing me this because you know how card draw is and you're messing with me and you're like, this card is either terrible or it could be good and it's just actually playable. Like it's not bannable. Because I have to take a step back. I have to pump the brakes. I have to remember that card draw in Magic is not card draw in Yu-Gi-Oh! And that like you guys draw cards all the time. You showed me stuff like there's like the guy who was banned, the whole breacher guy that was like better than Max C.
Yeah, that was stopping people from drawing cards.
There was the guy that draws you 7 cards. It technically draws you infinite cards if you have infinite life, because you could just keep activating that effect for some
Grizzle
reasons.
Brand. That's banned.
There's that guy.
Yep.
There's that guy. This is
I showed you Ristic Study.
Yes, you did show me that. Like this is dependent on the opponent drawing cards, but like I also could see that there are ways to like make the opponent draw cards as well, which would then also trigger this. Because initially I was going to say it's the downside is you have to wait for the opponent to do stuff, but that might not even be the case. That might not be the case. There might be ways that the opponent already has stuff in play that's going to draw them cards, and then you play this, and then that triggers that, and then you draw cards anyway. And that seems insane. That seems so good.
You showed me card destruction in Yu-Gi-Oh! Recently. There are a lot of cards like card destruction legal in Magic.
That's wild. That's wild. You told me about one of them, and you said, and that was like better card destruction. Holy crap, this card's crazy. I'm in one of two camps with this. I'm either this card is really good. It can't be a commander. It's not legendary. So like you have to obviously get into this card. I'm in either the camp that this card's really good and isn't banned because you guys with card draw are a lot more liberal than with Yu-Gi-Oh! Or you're baiting me because you know how card draw is in Yu-Gi-Oh! And you're showing me this thinking that I'm going to think it's banned, but it's actually okay.
I mean, both are interesting and could totally be possible. We should, because the ban list is so crazy. Like, do you think this is good? Like, that should probably even be a separate question to answer.
Well, that doesn't matter, though, because bad cards are on the ban list, if we've discussed. So that's actually irrelevant. You're trying to, throw me off course.
I mean, yeah, but it's also fun. If you want to call consecrated things bad, please do.
No, that would make a good thumbnail for it. I don't think this card is bad. I do not think this card... I would be shocked. If this card is bad, I know nothing about Magic. I know nothing about this game if this card is bad. And I especially, like, I could see maybe this card being bad in not a multiplayer format specifically. Potentially. Because, like, in a one-on-one format... Yes, like, you're not, there's so much upside because you have 3 extra opponents with this. And that, like, scales with how good this card is. This can be good in a one-on-one format, but I feel like this would be exceptional because it's multiplayer specifically. And that's, like, a huge difference. I refuse to think that this card is bad. I can't see this card being bad. So it's either good and it's fine, or it's good and it's banned. And oh, you're so messed up. You are so messed up. I will not take the bait. I will not take the bait. I think you were showing me this because you literally showed me Pot of Greed on a creature that is infinite. It is not like a once per turn Pot of Greed. There's no way. There's no way. There's no way you showed me this without me trying to bait me into thinking that this is banned. So I think this card, solely because you're trying to bait me, is not banned.
If I weren't trying to bait you, would you say it was banned?
I'm sticking with my guns. I'm sticking with my guns.
But do you think
Stop getting in my head, CGB. I'm not changing my mind.
It's blue. It draws like infinite cards from other things you've seen. You saw Primeval Titan last time. That green card that gets 2 lands is banned. Is this better than that?
This is what you want me to think. It's like what you did with Void Winnower.
But I'm curious what you have to say.
It's the Iota with the Void Winnower. I think this card's really good. I think this card is really good.
I accept your answer. I just want to know if you think it's like better than those cards, or where do you think it actually sits on the power scale?
I think it's up there. It's up there. Like, there's other crazy degenerate stuff you could probably be doing, yes, but I feel like this is like, I feel like this could be a card that, like, debatably, like, people might discuss, like, should be banned. Potentially. Like, this just seems like it spirals out of control so quickly. If you play this and no one has removal for it, and bare minimum, if you just draw 6 cards off of this, I feel like you are just so far ahead. Like, the limiter is your mana at that point. And if you're playing this, let's assume you're playing this on 6, right? At that point, you have a lot of cards, but, like, how quickly can you actually fire them off? That's kind of the limiting factor with this. But if you have 1 million cards and you're, like, over the opponent, the world is your oyster. I don't know. I just feel like this card is very pushed. To me, that's just the vibe I get. So I feel like it could go either way. I feel like, despite the mind games, I feel like it could go either way, but I think you're messing with me, and I don't think it's banned.
You're right. It's not banned.
Oh, thank
It's not banned. This card... But this card... this card is so busted.
Okay, good. So
it's so hard to beat this card.
So people talk about this card should be banned, is what you're telling me.
I think So one of the interesting things about Commander is that they expect what's called Rule Zero to police the game in some sense. That is, we get together and we talk at the start of the game about what kind of game we're going to have and what power level our decks are. I think that Consecrated Sphinx has been around in the format long enough and that people are so used to it being busted that they don't put it in their decks that are designed for more social casual play.
Sure.
And at higher power levels, it sees play in like CEDH and decks like Kinnan and such, but it's too expensive in a lot of decks that aren't built around big creatures that if you tap out for it, the opponent might just combo win.
Sure.
So
sure. I can see that.
It sits in this place where it fits in super high power decks, and people I think have slowly removed it from those from all the casual decks just because it's too good. It is so hard to beat this card. When this card comes out, it is so hard to beat this card if you can't remove it. And it feels like cheating.
Yeah.
It feels like you have cheated the game when you untap after a turn with Consecrated Sphinx on the field. Your hand is like more cards than the rest of the table combined. Dude, it's
nuts. Yeah, like I feel like I've had very few like immediate visceral reactions to like it was like Hull Breacher and this are like the two that just immediately come to mind when seeing something. This is crazy. Like this is unreal how crazy this is. And I gotta say, buddy, you're making a hard argument to play anything else besides blue. I gotta say,
I didn't make the cards, okay?
As a Yu-Gi-Oh player, I'm just saying.
I'll see if some of these cards like convince you of other. Maybe some of these cards will convince you to play other things. Let's see.
All right, we'll see. Elish, Norn, Mother of Machines. This is sick art. You could put that like on a wall. That's cool. 4 and a white for a 4/7 legendary creature, Phyrexian Praetor. Vigilance is it just doesn't tap when it attacks?
Yes.
Right? Okay. If a permanent entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that's a lot of words, that ability triggers an additional time. So if I play Thing and some other thing on the battlefield has something that happens. Okay, this is going to be dumb and this isn't going to mean anything to you, but in Yu-Gi-Oh, if I have Black Whirlwind and I play a thing, that means I get to do Black Whirlwind twice if this is out. Okay, that makes sense. Permanents entering the battlefield don't cause abilities of permanents your opponents control to trigger. Okay, so it doubles your things and prevents their things from happening.
Yeah.
Abilities of permanents your opponent controls to trigger. It's 5 mana. Abilities of permanents your opponent controls to trigger. I'm of two minds of this card. The first is that this seems like something you could build around that because it is a legend, so you can play it as your commander potentially. I don't know if you would, but you can. But you could play a deck that has a million cards that allow you that do something on, a ability triggering to make it trigger twice. So that's like a build around type effect. I don't know how good the second effect is.
Okay, I'll give you some context.
Sure.
Cards that with triggers when they enter the battlefield are very common.
Okay. Permanents entering the battlefield don't cause abilities of permanents your opponent controls to trigger. See, the thing is with the last part is I don't know how common it is for opponents having these types of abilities in their deck, right? So maybe that's just like a bonus, and you kind of just like, oh, cool. Like
it is uncommon for a deck to not have things that would trigger. It would be very uncommon for that deck to exist.
Okay. Interesting.
It is a very normal thing in Magic. It would be. I'm not saying it's the same, but it would be like a deck that never special summons.
Sure. I don't know if I would make that comparison. There are things in Yu-Gi-Oh that trigger like
or
on
has no
summon or
maybe
things
no
like that.
abilities Maybe no ability on special summon stuff. Maybe that's a good comparison.
Well, like, because we have stuff that's like when this the comparison I was making earlier, it says when this card is summoned, you add a card from your deck to your hand with like these requirements, right? So that would be a perfect candidate for this. So it would double that, and then it would also stop the opponents from doing that. Yeah, like we have cards that do that. I would say it's not as common as what it makes sound like in Magic, but we have it. If it's as common as you're saying, or like, it's not uncommon, let's say. I don't know if you're playing this for the second effect or the first effect. It seems like you're playing it more for the first effect because that's more in your control. You have the ability to build a deck around this to make stuff double up and do the thing. And then it's like, if it happens to hose your opponent's stuff too, okay, sure. That's like a plus, right?
It's a plus.
It goes with the philosophy of it, like, creates social friction because your opponent doesn't get... Oh, no, the opponent doesn't get to do what they've been trying to do the whole... That's card games, everyone. Like, deal with it. Like... I don't know. I feel like this is probably fine. If this is banned, like, okay, sure. I think we've seen worse offenders than this. I don't know. I'm not getting, like... I get the vibes that this is okay. That's kind of where I'm at. Like, you know what?
It'd be fine in Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yeah, well, Yu-Gi-Oh's different because, like I said, it's not as common as, like, you're making it sound out to be in Magic, for one. And two, again, we would just kill this, honestly. Like, we would just we have removal and, like, ways to interact with a card like this. I just don't think in Yu-Gi-Oh! A card like this really fits, to be honest. I don't think we have a card that I can think of that, like, doubles up, like, the effects of other things, like, that trigger on summon and such. If we do, it's, like, very narrow or niche, like, specific to, like, the card itself or, like, cards within the own archetype.
I'll give Konami a hint. They should make that card. Money Glitch.
All right, I'm still in the camp that this is fine, but let's hear it.
No, it's fine. This card's fine. This card isn't. But Alice Norn, Mother of Machines, is a newer card.
Okay.
And
the art looks newer.
Yeah, one of the founders of the format wrote an article when this was released that they wanted it banned. But
really?
Yeah. It was quite a big to do on the internet at the time.
What was like the short the TLDR, if you will?
It's just that, giving the opponents turning off their decks from the command zone. It was very negative experience. A ton of commanders have enters the battlefield triggers that would not happen with Elish Norn on the field. And doubling up your triggers is already a beloved and sought after effect. When I said Konami,
is what you're saying.
I said, when there are multiple cards that do it, they are sought after. Like, they are desirable rare cards. They have price tags. Cards that double effects. In fact, it's so sought after. Like, in the last year, they printed a whole bunch of new ones for various types of effects, always rare or mythic, and they fetch huge price tags. Like, when they come out, like I'm telling you, Konami, this is an infinite money glitch. Getting your stuff to trigger twice, people love this. This.
I think an interesting analog for Yu-Gi-Oh! Is, how the normal summon, you get one of those per turn, right? As the game aged, they released more cards that allow you to have an additional normal summon, which then in theory lets you do another normal summon or summon type trigger. For people watching who know Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm talking about like Gem Knight, Seraphonite, Nightmare Goblin, these types of cards. And so that might be like a more closer comparison for us, because like some of those cards were bad historically, but then when they became playable or more easily accessible, getting an extra normal summon, because that's something you only had one of for so long, makes a huge difference in what a deck is capable of doing. Especially if that card sticks around for an additional turn. Typically it wouldn't, but yeah, so interesting.
Let's see if you can get the next one. You're doing good.
I'm not doing bad.
A nose for like these aren't busted. The only ones that are wrong don't make any sense, so that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying. Golos.
Yeah.
Tireless Pilgrim. 5 mana, legendary artifact creature scout. 3/5. When Golos, Tireless Pilgrim enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a land, put that card onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. When he enters, you get a land. It comes in tapped. So if you played on 5, you cheated out before, obviously. Played on 5, you get 1 to your 6. Next turn, you could be 7. It's any land. Doesn't say a basic land. I learned that from the Titan from last episode. So any land is much better than just a basic land. So we're learning. Okay, and then 2 white, blue, black, red, green. Exile the top 3 cards of your library. You may play them this turn without holy shit, that seems crazy. Okay, so clarifying question. I think we addressed this last time. Because this card has white, blue, black, red, green in its card text, that means you are still allowed to play any cards of those colors, correct?
If this is your commander, you can play all 5 colors.
Okay.
You cannot put this deck in a deck unless it has all 5 colors, because it itself has a 5-color identity. So if your commander is Elish Norn, for example, you can't have this in your deck.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So you have to either be playing a 5-color deck, or this has to be your commander, hence giving you 5 colors.
Yes.
This card seems really good. Stuff in your game costs stuff. This makes it free.
Uh-oh, free cards. Yu-Gi-Oh! Brain alert.
Yu-Gi-Oh! Brain. The neurons are firing. Dopamine is being released. And the best part is, it's double dopamine because it's free and you don't know what they are, and there's 3 of them, CGB. Oh, man.
Yeah, they could be lands.
Oh, that just killed my whole
Sorry.
spirit.
You just had the Golos experience.
Well, but that's fun, though. That's fun. People like fun.
Sure.
So what's this cost? This costs
fun.
5, 7 to do this. So you play. So ideally, if you're not ramping or anything, you play this on 5. You get the 6th land, and then next turn you're at 7 if you have another land. So then you can fire this, assuming you have all 5 colors, which I assume you would be trying to do if you're playing this deck. Also, I just realized this doesn't like tap this or anything. So if you have more excess mana of these colors, you could hypothetically keep doing this.
Yep, with 14 mana, you can do it twice. Assuming you can make all 5 colors in that configuration twice.
And then you hit 6 lands, and then you rage quit out of the room, because that's what I would do. This seems fun.
Can confirm, I guess. If I don't know, I'm the type who spins 3 lands every time.
Sure. But like, I imagine there's ways to manipulate your deck to have some cards on top. I'm trying to think about this. So let's assume you're playing this on turn 5. You draw 7 cards to start. If you're playing this on 5, 4 turns, or no, they'd be on your 5th turn. So that means you've drawn 5, so you're at 12. And you've played 5 lands, ideally, if you play 1 each turn. So I don't know how many lands are in a commander deck, but you've already gotten 5 out of the deck, ideally, at that point. And then 6 and 7.
Yeah, if you're trying to figure out the odds to like hit 7, I mean, it's not weird in Commander to run a lot of lands and also a lot of ways to get lands. So yeah, generating the 7 mana, like having the 7th mana the turn after you play Golos isn't weird. It wouldn't be weird for any Commander deck to get up to 6 or 7 mana on their turn 5 or 6.
The reason I could see this.
Say
I
it.
just knocked my cord out of my headphones. 1 sec.
Say it.
There we go. The reason I would see this getting banned is if there's some way to make the cost of this card like 0, or some way to reduce it that it's really repeatable. Like if there's a way to, I don't know what it would be, but if there's a way to make it that you could just make the cost of it 0 or like 2, Or like 4 or something.
I can provide that there are ways to reduce the cost of the generic mana count, but the colored mana count, not very common. I can't think of a way.
So you could make it 5, let's assume in that case then.
It would take another card that really, that's all it did, but yeah.
Because like my Yu-Gi-Oh! Free brain is like, if there's a way to constantly do this, because there's no restriction on how many times you could do it.
There are infinite, like, okay, with any activated open-ended ability, there are, especially on a commander, there are ways to generate infinite mana in the format. That is not uncommon. Like, yeah, almost any competitive take on a deck that has a commander with an ability like this is going to have ways to generate infinite mana to hopefully just use the ability until to do everything. Like, that is a thing that happens. When your commander does something like that off an infinite mana generator, it's called an outlet commander. This is an outlet.
Okay. So then that raises a few questions then. One, is this the best outlet in that case? Or are there better things that you could do than this? 2, did this card get banned potentially because there was another card, I think it was in the previous video we talked about, where they like banned it because it just took forever for the opponent to like actually kill the opponents or like win the game. So it's just like, I'm imagining you're in a situation where if you can do the thing, you have to exile the top 3, play those things, exile the top 3, play those things, and then eventually you have what you need to like win the game, right? That's kind of like,
yeah, we were talking about here. Paradox Engine. That was the other card we were talking about. I would say compared to Paradox Engine, if you have infinite mana with Golos, it's simple. You flip over your deck, you grab the 2-card combo, you say the game's over.
Oh, okay.
Like, that's not very hard, right?
Okay, where Paradox Engine, you have to jump through the hoops every time. Got it.
Yes. Okay. And as to your first question, is this the best outlet? It's really up there. It's hard to have much better, but I would say there are more versatile outlets. Okay. They exist, but this is up there. It's near the top echelon tier of that, but it's not the only. It's not like head and shoulders above.
Sure. I mean, it seems really good. Like, I guess now the question becomes from a ban perspective. Is it so consistent that it's like a problem that they need to ban it? Did someone just lose to this card too many times so they banned it? Is the play pattern not very like inspiring? Because like, again, you know, Yu-Gi-Oh! Brain, we would just like kill stuff like this before it goes off. Like, you're not always going to, but it's like... The fact, I think the biggest alarm bell is the fact that there's not like, you can just, if you have the infinite mana, you can keep doing it. But do you have to jump through like the hoops? Is jumping through the hoops enough to be like, yeah, this is fine. If it was like
there's definitely hoops to infinite mana. Yeah. It's creating combos, and like the alarm pieces are very like, people know them. Like, right.
So it's like if it's 2 white, blue, black, red, green, and tap, then you have another, hurdle to jump, right? Because then you have to untap this and pay the mana to do it. This is tough. This might be the hardest one you've shown me.
Really?
So.
I like this. So. I like this. Okay.
Is it just too much work to set this up? This is like what Commander's all about. You're setting up to do the big thing, the big dance, the big show, and then that's how you win the game, ideally, and everyone hates you for it.
So true. How dare you do the thing you wanted to do in your card game?
I wanted to do the thing. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
My gut hasn't been right. It's been very questionable throughout a lot of these videos you and I have done. My gut's saying that there's plenty of other things that do similar things like this, in the sense that, like, if you generate infinite mana, it wins you the game in like a basic sense, right? So if this is banned, they'd have to ban everything else. And it sounds like, from what you're telling me, that there's other things that I mean, granted, the kid may or may not be banned, depending on what you're referring to. It seems like this is not the only card that, in the simplistic sense, that you do the thing, you win the game, right? It seems like there's plenty of other things to which you can do that. So my gut's telling me this doesn't need to be banned. The only red flag is the fact that you can just keep triggering this thing over and over and over and over again if you could have a way to get infinite mana. But like, I feel like there's so many other things that can do that. So like, I'll go with not banned. I could go either way on this one. I'm pretty torn. I think this one's actually really hard. And maybe I just don't fully understand and comprehend this card. So if this gives you a thumbnail, so be it. Because I don't think I've given you a good thumbnail yet. So I'll go with not banned. I'll go with not banned.
You just wear that badge of pride. I don't think I've given you a good thumbnail.
This is the best one.
You can't possibly thumbnail this.
The only one that I've been like, that I've like not like been fully convinced on. I don't know.
I can tell you're feeling it. I like that. Golos, Tireless Pilgrim, is probably the most controversial banned commander that there is.
Okay. Let's hear it. Let's hear it.
This and it's for a different reason. It's
okay.
for something that you didn't really touch on. So it's a very,
is it the land part?
No, not, I mean, yes, but no, not really. It will give you some more insight into part of the philosophy that I don't think has been fully explored. Basically, the idea of variety. So let me read the reason.
Okay.
Printed in 2019, so a newer card by Magic. Okay. Yeah, banned in 2021. There are many problems with the card. Oh, sorry. There are many problems with the card, but the greatest is in the low to middle power level tiers where we focus the ban list. Golos is simply a better choice of leader for all but the most commander-centric decks. Its presence crushes the kind of diversity in commander choice which we want to promote. What they're saying is that almost no matter what your deck does, Golos is a better commander for your deck than the other commander choices. Almost no matter what. So if you wanted to build a Cats deck, Golos is a better commander than the commander that gives all your cats a bonus. Because Golos can be the commander for any combination of colors, and it gets you the land, and it gets you the cool wheelie-dealy thing. So, like, no matter what deck you build, you are probably better off with Golos as a commander than whatever your commander was going to be. No matter the theme, no matter the type, no matter the strategy. Golos is a better card than so many commanders that Golos just destroys the idea of playing all those commanders. They don't like the idea that if I'm coming up with a mid-tier commander whose art I like, that somebody looks at it and goes, yeah, but shouldn't you just play Golos instead? Golos would be better in your command zone.
Huh. That's really interesting.
Isn't that weird?
You're right. I didn't even think about that angle at all. So it's only because it's 5 color though, because that means it could literally, if it was like, for instance, 2 and 5 white, let's say, then it would only be the best commander for white decks, hypothetically. Yep. Interesting.
But yeah, now any deck that would be described as like my good stuff deck, Golos can be the commander, and it might be better than any other commander you'd find in that color combination. It's probably the best, like a color combination that doesn't get played as often as others. Like we'll say Mardu, red, white, black is not the most popular combination. The best commander in those colors is now Golos. And you don't even have to put, like, you might put 1 or 2 lands in your deck to go fetch that enable the other colors so you can spin the wheel. But for the most part, it can just be a Mardu weird theme deck. It can be a Mardu Soldiers deck. But here's Golos. So Golos at the time of his ban was the most popular commander in the world, when Commander was the most popular format in Magic.
Okay.
They banned it off the top of the mountain, kicked him right out.
I actually can agree with that, though, because I think about it in Yu-Gi-Oh terms. In Yu-Gi-Oh, you could look that there's like 4 or 5 decks that are trying to do the same thing. But what separates them is the fact that they sort of like lock the archetypes into the fact that they only really synergize with one another. And this is why I told you before how like archetypes are kind of like our equivalent of colors in a lot of ways. And so that's like, you know, when cards come along for Yu-Gi-Oh! That we call them generic in the sense that you can play them in any deck. Whereas like archetype tied cards, like we'll say like, oh, you can only special summon cats, right? Or you can only special summon scouts or something like that. So it locks you in what you're able to do, which is like more of our costs in our game. When we get these generic type cards, they become ubiquitous and like everyone's playing it. So I think as you explain it, the reasoning makes sense. I get it. They just want to increase diversity because otherwise everything's homogenized and that's kind of boring at the end of the day. So I think I get it. It's Yu-Gi-Oh! Had this problem early on where the best decks and the decks that everyone should be playing were good stuff decks. It was just the best 40 cards that were printed at the time until they started giving you incentives to play certain decks by taking away your ability to play other things, right? So it was almost diversity by force in a way. And so I get it. I think that makes sense. Interesting theory, though, or interesting story, I should say.
It should also give you, like, you know, it's also something to keep in mind going forward, because, like, Elish Norton Mother of Machines, when you look at it as Commander, part of what keeps it in check, I think, is that it's only white. If it were like a 3 or 4 color commander, the access you would have to the cards that like many cards that double trigger that would be way more busted is it's a big deal. It's a big deal. So
2 lands with Golos. Ooh.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. All right. Next card.
This is some freaky art. Biorhythm.
Look into my eyes.
6 and 2 green. 6 and 2 green. It's a sorcery. Looks like it's kind of an old card. Each player's life total becomes the number of creatures he or she controls. Great. I have to ask the obvious immediate question. If they have 0, does that mean their life becomes 0?
I'm going to answer the way you would answer me. Does it say that it doesn't?
Thank you. I appreciate it. So ideally, what's the move here? You board wipe and then play this and then win the game, assuming you have at least 1 creature on the field so you don't destroy yourself in the process. That seems to be the obvious play pattern.
Imagine if they remove the creature in response.
That'd be funny. That'd be for a good moment you wouldn't forget with your friends, that's for sure. This card seems bad. I gotta be honest with you. Like, this seems so cope that you're hoping this works the way you want it. There are just so many things I feel like that could go wrong with this.
Is that face not the ultimate thumbnail face?
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. But, like, again, if we're playing the mind games, I feel like this is a card that I might think is bad, and then it's banned anyway for some dumb reason. What was the mountain card?
The mountain
Jokel
Hops.
That was banned, right?
No. Upheaval was banned. Jokel Hops is legal.
Upheaval. Yeah, Upheaval is banned. Sorry. It seems like there were some bad cards you've showed me that are like, this is like a Dingus Egg to me is what this looks like. I don't think it's as bad as Dingus Egg.
Dingus Egg was restricted. Have some respect.
Oh, excuse me. This seems like such a Timmy card. This seems like such bait. But I'm going to say it's bad. You're going to be like, yeah, but it's banned.
But can you live with yourself saying it's a banned card when you know it's bad?
That's why I hate when we do these videos, because it's like they don't make sense. No, actually, you know what? I think out of principle, I have to stick to my guns, and I have to say that it's bad and it's not banned, because I don't think I could live with myself. But then it's a biorhythm Dingus Egg. That's what I become at that point. Am I willing to become a biorhythm Dingus Egg? Yes, I am. It's bad and it's not banned.
The ultimate thumbnail. Biorhythm is banned and has been for the entirety of Commander. It has not at no point been legal in the format. They didn't even give it a chance. It's so banned. Let's read. As an 8-mana sorcery, Biorhythm can appear to deck builders as a fair and funny haymaker, but the reality is that it usually results in a disappointing twist to the game. ignoring previous gameplay to wipe 100 plus life off the board. Wrath effects are a core element of casual metagames, and most often biorhythm results in the accidental elimination of players rather than a strategic payoff. What do you think of that?
I think someone lost to this and got salty on the committee and banned this. That is... Okay. Level with me.
Yeah.
Please tell me this card would like never see play if this was legal.
Oh God. Would this card ever see play?
Like, best case is someone's trying to play just some gimmicky deck to resolve this. Like, I can't see you in any other circumstance wanting to play this card.
If I were playing, if Biorhythm was legal and I wanted to abuse it, I would use a card called Emergent Ultimatum, which lets me cast 2 monocolored spells for free. This would be one of them, and the other would be a card that destroys all creatures and puts a creature onto the battlefield under your control with the power toughness equal to what was destroyed. So, like, and that would be a 2-card win the game combo. Now, I am using a 7-mana tutory effect. That does have a downside that I'm not even going to approach. Let's just assume it works. That also finds 2 very clunky cards and then has them both resolve perfectly, and then you win the game. I don't see it. I do not see it. And there is none of you in comments, unlike other cards that we've done these videos about, none of you in comments can come up in here and be like, well, you didn't play with Biorhythm, because none of you have unless you were cheating. Because it's never been legal in the format. Not for a second. Not a sniff. But I can't imagine this card being even played. I don't see it, dude.
Maybe it's not accounting for... I was gonna say that's not accounting for all the ways this could go wrong, right? It's like they could kill your thing. They could counter this. Like I'm not seeing.
So here's the thing where I think it would be a staple. I think it would go in all the elf decks, which is elf decks produce a ton of mana and a ton of board. So I think an elf deck would play this right before its final attack to kill everybody because it's always going to have the most creatures in most situations. And in that way, it's similar to another card, one of the most common finishers in the format that is not banned and is very expected and has ended probably more games of Commander than anything else. A card called Crater. I will. It's a card called Craterhoof Behemoth. Okay. Everybody who plays Commander knows Craterhoof Behemoth. It comes down, it gives all the creatures on the board a big bonus, all of your creatures, a huge bonus equal to the number of creatures you have, and gives them all trample, which everything in Yu-Gi-Oh has. And then they just go out and smash the table. They kill everything. And this is not just an unbanned card. It's a very expected, normal way, probably most common way to win the game card. And everybody understands it. My wife, when she didn't play much Commander and I was teaching her the format, Craterhoof was in her cat's deck and she's like, ooh, I Craterhoof now and I win. I love this. This card is great. Biorhythm would be like another Craterhoof Behemoth, but it's a spell and it's even more narrow in that way than Craterhoof. And I can't, man. I can't believe this is banned. It blows my mind. I'm glad it blows your mind. It gives me some feeling of sanity. Yeah, Biorhythm, guys. Biorhythm can be unbanned. I'm declaring Biorhythm can be unbanned.
I stood my ground. I'm not changing my position. This card is fine. This card is fine. Let's hear it in the comments.
Hell yeah. Justice for Biorhythm. The last card, I'm really excited.
Oh, great. Reanimate. 1 black, sorcery. Put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. You lose life equal to its converted mana cost. Okay. Simple card. We have this in Yu-Gi-Oh! I may have shown you this, actually. We have Monster Reborn. Monster Reborn is this, but you don't lose life. It's just put a creature card from a graveyard under the battlefield under your control. And it's also a graveyard, similar. So, like, you can do your opponents. So it seems like the exact same thing.
Yeah.
This only costs 1 mana. In Yu-Gi-Oh! It's free. It's a spell. It's really interesting, though, because we have versions of this card that are still banned. Funny enough, Monster Reborn is actually still limited to 1 copy to this very day. Those types of, like, generic resurrection effects are very good. As I told you, Yu-Gi-Oh's kind of moved to more like archetype centric. We're trying to get away from generic stuff in ways to encourage people to play more diverse, styles. Kind of like the Golos philosophy, if you will.
Now this isn't me feeding you information. We talked about this in your video with reanimation effects. The normal rate, like for a good effect like this, is 4 mana in Magic.
Sure. Out of curiosity, how old is this card? Like, what was its first printing?
Oh God, it's pretty old.
Okay.
It might be 90s.
This looked newer, so I
can double
sure.
check.
I was like, there's no way this is the first time this card has been printed. Like, I mean, maybe at 1 mana it was.
The first printing was, oh God, I can't read that small, 1997.
Oh, wow. So that makes sense though. Cause like, Yu-Gi-Oh! Monster Reborn was in the first set. So, this seems like a very basic effect, but 1 mana, that's a lot, or that's not a lot. That's what I meant to say.
Yeah.
And it's like, because of Yu-Gi-Oh! And I know like how powerful just generic resurrection is, like the fact that it's limited and or banned in our game, depending on which card you're looking at, like that says a lot. And so in Magic, if it's this cheap, and you're saying like the average rate normally, especially about modern days, is like 4, even more potentially. Was this something that was just printed long ago and it's in Commander and they're like, oh, this is way too good for Commander because it's so cheap and it's like an old card, so they like banned it and they've like never printed a version like this again? It's possible.
I can tell you straight up, there is no other spell that does this for 1 mana in Magic history.
Understandably. Simply because it like where its status is in like modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, I'm almost tempted to say this is banned.
Almost?
Almost. The difference is you guys have costs for things, so it like that puts a limiter sometimes.
We can definitely agree the life loss, though, is balanced around... This came out before Commander did. They did not anticipate anybody having 40 life when they made this card.
You said what's the demon guy that draws you 7 cards?
Grizzlebrand.
Yeah, like, I'm thinking, like, okay, you play some card that just dumps him to the grave. And I think you said he's banned, though. But, like, in a world, right? You play some card that dumps him to a grave, and then reanimate him for 1, and then maybe for 2 mana instead of 7, or whatever the hell he costs. Then you draw 7 cards, right? And then or you draw, like, everything.
Apply that to Void Winnower, or Consecrated Sphinx, or Iona for the time it was legal. Yeah. And any creature they can print at any cost.
Can I know what the cost of like a typical card that sends any card to graveyard is?
I'll even show you one.
Oh, how nice of you.
Yeah, I'll show you a card that I will spoil is legal in Commander.
Sure. We call them foolish effects because the card is called Foolish Burial that just says dump a monster from deck to grave. Entomb. 1 black, search your library for a card, put that into your graveyard. Yeah, so the difference is yours is any card. Ours is a monster specifically. And yours is an instant. Ours is a sorcery. So this is actually better Foolish Burial, which is crazy to think that exists. And Foolish Burial is also limited to 1 copy as well, because that card is very good in Yu-Gi-Oh! Oh, man. But this is Commander. I could see this just being it kind of goes to the philosophy of, are they going to ban the card that like does the unfair thing, like to get out? Like, is it the mechanism to get to the crazy thing, or are they going to ban the thing itself? Because you said that Grizzlebrand is banned, right?
It is.
So if they just ban enough things, but they have to ban so many things that you could just reanimate, right? Like that would you could just ban reanimate and that just solves the problem. Oh, man. You only get 1 of it, though. It is Commander. And again, Monster Reborn is limited in actual Yu-Gi-Oh! This is tough. I'm just seeing a world where you just entomb your best thing and then just reanimate it. And it's like, is that enough to win you the game? Maybe. But I feel like you need mana for stuff. But it just depends on if the cost of whatever the crazy thing is you're bringing out. that could be very oppressive. But you have to draw both of these cards, and 100 cards, 2 one-ofs. You could search them, I guess. The life loss doesn't, that literally doesn't matter most of the time. You have 40 life, too. This is... I'm torn.
I like this. I like this.
This one's hard.
This one's a feeling.
Hard. This one's hard. Because Monster Reborn is limited in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! It's a really, really good card, but it's good enough as a one-of. I feel like if this card were in a format where you could play 4 of it, then it's probably not okay. I think maybe because it's Commander and there's only 1 of it, it's like, yeah, there's ways to get it back, so maybe that's like, but you know, that you can make that logic with any card. It's tough. I feel like this is an enabler for a lot of bullshit. But I also think maybe as a one-of, like, it's fine, and it's like, if that happens, like, so be it. That's kind of just like the way it is. 100 card deck too. I think, like, on the surface, it, like, screams that it's an enabler and probably should be banned. And it probably is. But I just have this... I don't know. Like, Reborn's limited to 1 in Yu-Gi-Oh! And this is Reborn. Worse Reborn, even. I think if Reborn was still banned in Yu-Gi-Oh! I'd probably say this is banned, too. But, like, Reborn being at 1 in Yu-Gi-Oh! Is fine. I'm going to say it's okay. I'm going to say it's legal.
I don't usually do this. Final answer?
Yeah.
Yeah, Reanimate is not banned. Good job. Good job.
Wow.
Reanimate is...
I was ready to be wrong.
Yeah. Reanimate is low-key probably one of the best black cards in the format that you could put in basically any deck. I basically put Reanimate in every single black deck.
Sure.
I've never been sad to have Reanimate. It's always good. Always, but it is not banned, even with the Entomb combo. Another cool thing about Magic is the max hand size of 7, and you draw no matter where you are in turn order in Commander, you draw on your first turn. So a cool play pattern that does come up that they took from 60 card formats where Reanimate was legal as a 4 of, by the way, has never actually been banned from a paper 60 card format where it's legal as a 4 of.
Wow.
Reanimate is still legal in all those formats. But what you can do is you draw your card for turn, and then you discard. You just go to your end step immediately and discard to hand size because you have 8 cards and the max is 7. So you discard the biggest, baddest monster you can find, and then on your next turn you play your swamp and you reanimate it like on the spot.
Sure.
So
Yu-Gi-Oh! We do that sometimes
cool.
too. Yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh! We can do that too.
Yep,
yeah.
That's
cool.
a fun play pattern. But yeah, Reanimate, still legal, so maybe a reason you might want to play black to go with your blue. Huh?
Yeah, okay. I gotta be honest, I was expecting you to say this is banned. But maybe is it just fine? Like it's like, yeah, it's like cheap, it's a good card, but it's like
it is a great card. Yeah. I don't think anybody talks about Reanimate being banned. This is just it's one of these powerful cards. I've never seen somebody get salty. For black. Yeah, I've never seen... It's weird. People get salty, and they talk about banning Rhystic Study and Consecrated Sphinx. They talk about banning a number of cards that I haven't shown you yet that blow my mind. But like there are like board clears. I'm not kidding. There are board clears that talk about banning.
Oh, wow.
Like that kind of thing. But then when somebody like reanimates something, I've never heard anybody be like, that card shouldn't be legal. And I'm always like, this is just the best card. This card is insane. Yeah, it happened to me last night. My opponent like reanimated what's called a massacre worm that gives all creatures like -2 effect, and every time a creature dies, their controller loses 2. And I took like 20 some damage on the spot.
Wow.
And I'm like, yeah, for 1 mana, they didn't have 6 mana to cast massacre worm, but they had 1 mana to reanimate it. Nice, really cool.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I remember when Reborn got unbanned in Yu-Gi-Oh! Because it was banned for the longest time. And it's just a really good card. And sometimes it'll be the reason you win a game. Sometimes it's the reason you lose a game. But at the same time, it's kind of just it's just a good card. And I think at the end of the day, we're playing a card game. We're allowed to have good cards.
Yep.
You know? Yeah, I don't know. I think the fact it's limited I think if it was banned in Yu-Gi-Oh! I would have said it was banned here too.
Taking the advice from Yu-Gi-Oh! Dang it. I was curious how you would evaluate like
that was
the
tough,
powerful
though.
reanimation effects in Magic, and this is by far the best. Like by far the best one.
That's cool. Neat card.
I hope you enjoyed today's Commander. Do you feel like you understand the format now?
No, I don't. All I know is that blue is still, taking a lot of flack for no reason that I can understand.
No reason. You heard
no
it here.
reason. No reason. And maybe we'll be looking into black a little bit as well. I like the Entomb Reanimate stuff because I guess these are 2 limited Yu-Gi-Oh cards you just showed me right at the end here. So I like those cards. So that sounds fun.
Oh, there's more. There's much.
Oh, I bet.
More.
I bet.